Hey, thanks for joining me. I'd like to make a video that's a summary of my backpack gear called Backpack Shakedown. And about 4 months ago, I made a very long and detailed video that describes all of my gear in excruciating detail. And while that was perhaps too long, it inspired me to think of my backpack gear in a different way. Now I think of my gear as having 12 kits. And I'd like to introduce this idea of a backpack kit system. So let's begin. The first kit is a backpack kit. Well, it's really just a backpack, even though a kit is really a collection of items. In this case, the backpack is the only item. I use a 6 Moon Designs minimalist backpack. It's light, it carries weight really well, so I can go on extended carries without having to resupply. That could be 7 to 10 days easily. Also, it has a great vest in front and a hip belt, and it has pockets, and I love pockets. Now for my sleeping kit, I use an ultralight quilt down to 30 degrees for a rating. I find that's comfortable enough for 3 seasons, especially when paired with a really good sleeping pad. And so I like my Neo Air Extern sleeping pad, which has an R rating of about 4.4. Nice and warm. And I also carry a pillow. Now for the shelter, I like to have a 1-person tent that has its own pole, so it's a freestanding tent, and therefore I don't need tent stakes. That makes it very easy to pop up in less than 2 minutes, typically about 90 seconds, and I can find a campsite just about anywhere. I don't have to be too selective. I also like having a tent fly. That double wall tent adds a slightly more weight, but I have very few problems with condensation, even with heavy rain. I like that a lot. Also, I don't carry a ground cloth. So for my food kit, I use a Bear Vault, an Ursack, or an OpSack bags, these anti-odor bags, depending on the types of animals on the trail. I use a cold soak jar and a titanium spoon. If I cold soak, then I don't have to carry a stove and I don't have to carry fuel, and that makes it much more simplistic. Now for my water kit, I've got a couple of water bottles like most others. I carry a small water bottle on my shoulder strap. I also have a CNOC water bag and a water filter, and then also some Aquamira purification drops just in case. So for my poop kit, pretty standard, a bidet water bottle attachment so I can wash off my backside. I got a trowel, I got Prel hand sanitizer. I also have a black bandana, not to be used as toilet paper, but after washing off your backside, it's nice to dry off your backside so you're not walking around with a soggy bottom. For my clothes kit, the clothes I'm not wearing, I have a full zipper hoodie. I really like a full zipper so I can get in and out of that hoodie easily. I also have a rain jacket and rain pants. I've got zippered legs for my shorts to turn them into pants. I have a Montbell puffy jacket that I like a lot. I also carry extra socks and extra underwear. Those are the only extra clothes I carry. Everything else is just one item only. And I do have a stuff sack. Actually, I now have a waterproof stuff sack for my clothes. For something called a head kit, I have everything arranged for my head in one little kit that I carry on one of my shoulder vest pockets. I have a bug head net, I have a tether for my hat that I clip to the back of my shirt. I have a buff. I don't wear a beanie or a cap anymore. I just use the buff as a beanie. I also got my earphones and I got chapstick and a sunscreen. And I keep that all together, and that's called my head kit. Now for a repair kit, well, that's first aid for my body. I really like Leuko tape. I also like Tic Tac boxes for pills. That keeps things pretty dry. And then I have a repair kit for my gear, and that's shown here. Now, I'd like to emphasize that a 25-foot or 50-foot cord is really handy when you're out there backpacking. I have a pretty standard toiletries kit, although it is minimal. Toothbrush and just something to wash off. I do like to shave on the trail, so I have a minimalist razor for that. Electronics technically are luxury items. After all, 100 years ago, people went backpacking and there were no electronics, and they did just fine. But I think these days we consider electronics to be somewhat essential gear. I've got my phone, my GoPro camera, pump for my sleeping pad, flashlight, and then some batteries. And then finally, luxury items. And those are items that you really don't need out there on the trail, but they make life a lot more comfortable. And that includes my trekking poles, a paper map, a watch. I do like my camera, a mini tripod. And then finally, my beloved chair, also known as the Chairway to Heaven. And if you want to find out why it's called the Chairway to Heaven, or you want any other details about this equipment, well, you can go to my longer detailed video, and I'll place the link below. So with that, I hope you've enjoyed this idea of the backpack kit system. You just have to think of 12 different categories of gear and where you're going to put those then packages of gear within your backpack. And otherwise, it's pretty easy to pack up and easy to remember things as well if you keep the backpack kit system in mind. Thanks for joining.